Since that day, it has been known as Thomasville.
I bought the 490 acres from Ziba Fletcher of Fulton County and then sold it to the county commission for $210. Thomas County had a seat of government, and I made $10. Not a bad day's work.
Tell us about a little more about the act.
An act to make permanent the site of the public buildings at Thomasville in the county of Thomas and the namesake village, and to authorize the justices of the inferior court to lay off militia districts and to establish the time of holding the inferior courts of said county. Whereas the commissioners appointed for the county of Thomas, pursuant to an act of the General Assembly passed the 23rd day of December 1825, they fix on the site of the public buildings in said county, and they purchase for county purposes lot of land number 39 of the 13th district, originally urban, now Thomas County. Be it enacted by the city and House of Representatives of the state of Georgia in General Assembly, that it is hereby enacted by the authority of the same that the proceedings of the commissioners so far respects the purchase of said lot of land for the public site is hereby confirmed and made valid in law. And be it further enacted by the authority aforesaid that the courthouse and jail of said county of Thomas being hereby permanent and a place now known and called by the name of Thomasville, 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 and shall be called and known by that name of Thomasville, Thomasville.
The second year of Thomas County, it got even bigger. And this is why I was saying I should not have had Colquitt in the beginning. Lowndes gave Thomas what was called the, and still is, the 8th district of Urban County. And that made up, it's like 2/3 of what's Colquitt County today. Included what's Moultrie, Funston, all the best places in Colquitt County. You could kind of see that with the overlay of how much land that included.
1834, Thomas County had 4 post offices. The first to open was the Duncanville Post Office in November 1827. Second was in Thomasville, opened in March 1832. Gruberville and Tired Creek were both opened in July 1833.
I think they were debating about the dam even then.
Through the 1840s, Thomas County continued to grow around its villages of Gruberville, Boston, Glasgow, Thomasville, Duncanville, and Tired Creek. By 1850, it was a thriving county of more than 10,000.
Of those 10,000 people that lived in Thomas County in 1850, about half were free citizens and half people of African heritage living in the system of state-sanctioned and enforced race-based slavery. If you read the newspapers, the 1850s, after they started publishing them in Thomasville, some of the descriptions in what were the very regular ads asking for capture of enslaved people are absolutely brutal, including one of them, if you take notice, up here. Growth in the 1850s led to the creation of new counties from Thomas County land, beginning with Colquitt County in February 1856. Thomas contributed the entire 8th district in the north part of the county, including the settlements of Moultrie and Funston. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say Moultrie was not known as Moultrie then. This is really confusing. Moultrie was known as Oclockney. And after Moultrie became Moultrie and stopped being Oclockney is about when Oclockney in Thomas County first popped up as a settlement. So I'll just, like, typically when we're doing a lot of things, I'll just keep it at Moultrie because that makes it easier. But it's so much more confusing. You always have to be careful when looking at the documents about when is the person saying the name of the settlement Oclockney, because it could depend on it being in two very different places. All right, where's John Hand? I know he's out there. I'm going to wait to the end. John, wait to the end. I have a mea culpa to make to you when I'm done with this one.
Thomas County in southwest Georgia grew in importance to both the state of Georgia and the southeast through the 1850s. It began to let its friends in North Georgia know its little town of Thomasville was no longer just a place of gophers and gators.
Of course we raise gophers and gators, but they for the fellas that hate us.
Our little town, Thomasville, is still improving. Houses are going up, citizens settling among us, old settlers enlarging their business, schools are flourishing. In fact, everything is on the advance, and the time is not far distant when I venture southern Georgia will be sought for as a pleasant home for hundreds that have formerly looked upon it as a poor wiregrass region, fit only to be occupied by gophers and gators.
Okay, so sorry. I've only seen this like 10,000 times. I still don't have the timing down. So when I was doing the original research for this and going back and looking at everything, I kept on coming across this phrase, gophers and gators, and Thomasville, southwest Georgia, being anywhere south of Macon even, they were calling the land of gophers and gators. And I put this all together and did all this, and Mimi comes in one day and tells me, John says that gophers aren't those cute, fuzzy little things that we call gophers today, that they're actually gopher tortoises. And I was like, I love my fuzzy little guys. I don't want to believe John. I know deep down that John's right, but I don't want to believe him. I am sticking with my fuzzy little guys, and I will research this. I'll do my own research. I'm just going to do my own research. I will find this out later. John, of course, as he always is, was 100% correct. I'm going to retire my fuzzy little guys over here after today. And they are, in fact, the gopher tortoise, which are not nearly as cute looking in a Thomasville sweatshirt, I'm going to add. But nonetheless, that is, I am wrong dozens of times on a daily basis, as my children love to remind me, and this is just another example of it. So thank you, John, for making sure everyone is correct, even myself, and I'll wave goodbye to my little gopher friend there.
Termination was best demonstrated in Thomas County's domination of national politics in Georgia's first congressional district in the 1850s. Two savvy Thomas County lawyers turned politicians, James Lindsay Seward and Peter Earlylove, outmaneuvered the urbane candidates from Savannah to win 5 consecutive nominations and elections to be United States representatives, much to the frustration of their friends and colleagues in coastal Georgia.
Double trouble.
So Seward is one of the most fascinating characters. I can't go into him right now as badly as I want to. I am fascinated by James Seward. He was, at various points, possibly the most hated man in Georgia at certain periods. But they ran circles around the guys from Savannah. They hated him in Savannah so much, they would go to every 2 years, they would get together for the first congressional district's convention, and they were like, they'd have some candidate, and they were like, we are going to get him this time. And Seward and Love they out-hustled him. They out-organized him. They were better at politics than the guys from Savannah were. And they the articles in the Savannah papers are wonderful around that time in their just absolute saltiness about getting run around by Love and Seward again. Then in 1858, Thomas County contributed the eastern quarter of the 13th and 14th districts to the creation of Brooks County. In the process, they lost the important villages of Grooverville in the south and Tolokus in the north, but now Thomas County is starting to look a little bit like Thomas County that we know. It's kind of a weird county in terms of its shape, in part because they took parts from Early County, which had these 250-acre lots, and Irwin County, which had 490-acre lots. They didn't do that with any of the other counties. So you'll notice most counties have like a flat top or a mostly flat top. But Thomasville, because even today its eastern edge is the 17th and 18th, it has this weird little head that pops up on it because they like keeping the districts as whole as possible. Or the land lots, I should say.
1854, the settlement of Fletcherville, directly south of Thomasville, was incorporated by the state of Georgia and formed a government. To the east of Thomasville, the settlement of Tockwatton, founded by Rhode Island native and Thomas County pioneer Edward Remington, began to organize. Remington called it Tockwatton because the topography reminded him of a settlement near his birthplace in Providence, named by the Narragansett people.
The Providence Plantation Indians called my childhood home Tockwatton, in their tongue meaning a steep hill to climb, and the red hills of my lot of land here reminded me of them.
In January 1861, Thomas County elected Samuel Spencer, Augustus Hansel, and William Palmer to represent them at the secession convention in Milledgeville. The trio voted with the majority, and on January 9th, 1861, Thomas County in Georgia left the United States. This begins the next era in Thomas County's history, the Civil War and Reconstruction, 1861-1877.
On January 14th, 1861, the Satilla No. 3 engine pulled into what was called Station Number 18. First it was called Seward Station, and then Boston Station. Then on April 17th, the Thomasville Depot, number 19, on the Atlantic and Gulf Railroad. In addition to the new politics and looming war, Thomas County was now fully connected to the world of rapid transport and shipping. There was a whole separate program to do about Boston and the depot, Old Boston, New Boston. There's a third Boston that most people, we don't even talk about the third Boston. We'll get to that at some point, not today, some other program.
County militias organized and trained for combat. The Thomasville Guards, Oklahoma, Light Infantry, and Dixie Boys were amongst the first. In total, more than 1,500 men and boys fought in more than 10 homegrown units and home guard militias. Many never returned. From 1861 to 1865, Thomas County contributed equal and food to the Confederacy. Although no battles came close to Thomas County, 5,000 Union prisoners of war were moved from Andersonville to Thomasville for 2 weeks in December 1864. They were kept in a makeshift stockade to the west of Thomasville, part of what later became Dewey City. The 5-acre camp was surrounded by an 8-foot deep trench, part of which still exists at the historic site on Wolf Street. War ended for Thomas County on May 9, 1865, when Union General Edward McCook led federal troops into Thomasville uncontested. The Emancipation Proclamation was read at plantations between Thomasville and Tallahassee as the troops advanced to the Florida capital.
That's not totally true. There was one contest in newspapers in Ohio told the story of the rebel widow in the house outside of Thomasville. We asked her for water. She told us, I don't keep water here for Yankees. We asked her for milk, and she said, I don't keep milk here for Yankees. And then escorted us off property with her empty musket.
Because Thomas County was spared destruction, it became an attractive destination for refugees from coastal Georgia and the upper South in general. The county benefited from the influx of talented people that helped smooth Reconstruction and create a successful civic structure. Thomas County also benefited from the influx of homegrown talent from the recently freed men and women that constituted more than half of the population. The 5 sons of Festus and Isabella Flipper, unconstrained by the old laws limiting education, all became remarkably successful.
Government vacillated between local and Reconstruction control during this time. Nonetheless, both the city and county maintained. The seat of Thomasville built its downtown, established a fire department, and opened schools. In the eastern part of the county, Boston did the same, incorporating in 1870.
Young's Female College, an incorporated school for young women established before the Civil War, finally had a building on Dawson Street by 1870 and an able president in John E. Baker. It was named for Thomas County pioneer Major Elijah Reamer Young, who left the quest to found the college.
I am Major Elijah Rimmer Young. When I died, I willed my fortune to create a women's college in Thomasville. Young's Female College educated 3 generations of young women and is a legacy we can all be proud of.
In the old 17th district of Thomas County, the agricultural community of Ocklawaha incorporated in 1874. At the same time, Dr. Thomas Spalding Hopkins and his son, Dr. James G. Hopkins, were traveling to medical conventions, advancing the idea that respiratory ailments and diseases could be treated through exposure to air that is filled with airborne resins from pine trees.
In 1899, I'll shoot Robert Evans in the middle of Broad Street, the state prison, flee to Mexico, Hawaii, and Texas, change my name twice, and start 2 new families. But that's another program.
Judge Henry William Hopkins, another son of Dr. T.S. Hopkins, took the lead in marketing Thomasville and Thomas County as a sanitarium and resort, coordinating with investors to build needed infrastructure like modern hotels and boarding houses. With the people and plans in place, combined with the winding down of Reconstruction, Thomas County was entering a new era of its history.
Thomas County is destined to be a winter destination, and by gum, I am going to make it happen.
Good job, Judge.
74, H.W. Hopkins convinced Thomas Cole Mitchell, a planter who retained significant wealth at the end of the Civil War, to invest $100,000 to build a new, large, modern hotel in the center of downtown Thomasville. By the end of the year, the first Mitchell House was open.
Booklets like Thomas County, a home for immigrants and invalids, were distributed in the Northeast and Midwest, creating the tourist market for the county. This particular issue that we have came from Cincinnati, and they were sent really all over the place.
These 4 health seekers continued to grow. In 1882, the Thomas County Commissioners suggested building a perimeter road that would be at a 2-mile radius with the Thomas County Courthouse as the center. Tourists and health seekers loved it, and it became known as Pine Tree Boulevard. Health Elsewhere in the county, the turpentine industry was growing. Experienced turpentine camp operators were moving from the Carolinas to North Florida and South Georgia. A young man named George Wesley Meigs from South Carolina established a turpentine and lumber business in the northwest of the county around 1875. In 1882, it was a large enough settlement to get a post office. George Meigs was the first postmaster and named the settlement Meigs.
I cannot overemphasize what influence postmasters had in getting to name what towns are named. If they are not named for a natural feature or something like that, look at who the first postmaster was, and that'll get you your answer most of the time.
As tourism continued to grow, a new hotel was built in 1885. Facing an area known as Smith's Grove, the Piney Woods Hotel became one of the top hotels in the South. It was owned and managed by Martha Adams Remington Davies Russell Bauer, the oldest daughter of Thomasville pioneer Edward Remington.
They say I was the first baby of European heritage born in Thomasville, and I'm inclined to believe them. If you're wondering why my name is so long, I miss Theodosius Davis dearly. He died too young, and I love Dr. Peter Bauer. Jim Russell tried to kill my son Billy when he was a boy, and if he is not experiencing eternal torment, I'll see to it myself.
In 1889, voters approved a bond issue to buy Smith's Grove and make the pine tree-laden lot that had come to be known as Yankees Paradise Thomasville's first public park, Paradise Park. $25,000.
One of the most impactful events in Thomas County history happened in Quitman in neighboring Brooks County. An angry mob burned down the Connecticut Industrial and Normal School in Quitman, a Congregationalist mission school for Black students in 1886. They were then offered land in Thomasville to rebuild. Generations of students from what became the Allen Normal and Industrial School became the leadership of the Thomasville and Thomas County Black communities, helping to establish strong middle-class communities in the county. In the south of the county, almost in Florida, the growing agricultural and timber community on the railroad line called Lily Mitchell decided to incorporate too. They instead submitted a bill to incorporate with a name to honor one of Thomas County's favorite winter residents, Dr. John Thomas Metcalf.
When I bought the old Blackshear place on Meridian Road, I named it for my late wife, Susan. I'm glad to see it looks better than ever today.
The east side of the county continued to thrive too. The Georgia Northern Railroad, owned regionally by the Pidcock family of Colquitt County, ran along the Thomas County, Brooks County border. In 1903, the Massey Brothers incorporated Barwick, named for their primitive Baptist preacher, Bob Barwick.
Bob. Oh no, I'm not letting you get away. Oh, one more try.
The east side of the county continued to thrive too.
Oh, stop it.
Owned regionally by the Pidcock family of Colquitt County, ran along the Thomas County, Brooks County border. In 1903, the Massey Brothers incorporated Barwick, named for their primitive Baptist preacher, Bob Barwick.
Oh. No. I am not giving up on this.
I was delighted and honored and surprised because the whole time I preached in Old Thomas, I lived in pain.
Thank you. Thomasville and Thomas County's popularity as a winter resort continued to grow, and peaked around 1890 or so.
Railroad stop on the Thomas Brooks border was growing enough to incorporate. The settlement of McDonald, which had been around since 1848, had grown since the Georgia Northern built through. In 1895, their new postmaster, Duncan Peacock, changed the name of the post office to Pavo, Latin for peacock. When they incorporated in 1898, they kept their new name.
He's not going to talk. I wanted him to talk. It kept on sounding like Justin Wilson, and I couldn't do it.
Thomasville and Thomas County were not just about the people who visited. The people made history in other ways, even if they did not know it at the time. On November 28, 1895, the first intercity game of football was played in Southwest Georgia, Thomasville versus Valdosta. The Times Enterprise even ran a primer for the curious. Thomasville won 28-0. They posed for a picture after the game.
Never forget.
Final change happened to Thomas County's size and shape. It contributed significant portions of old early county to the new county between Thomas and Decatur, Grady County. It was not without debate, as many were more upset with losing the village of Duncanville than the relatively new town of Cairo, which became the county seat. Peace, y'all.
I love you, Cairo.
As Thomasville's popularity as a mainstream resort declined, its popularity as a hunting retreat for America's wealthy and powerful increased. Beginning in 1888, when A.T. McIntyre sold his Aunt Peggy's place on Lower Cairo Road to Salome Hanna, the Red Hills plantations transformed from agribusiness to quail hunting. While it has diversified, it has never ended.
President McKinley visited Thomasville in 1895 and as governor of Ohio and a presidential candidate, and then as president in 1899. There's just one of the many Midwestern governors who made Thomasville their winter resort and winter home, William Marion of Minnesota. The resort era of Thomasville and Thomas County ended for really many reasons. The development of Florida for tourism and the understanding of germ theory and the accompanying fear of tourists spreading disease are really two of the primary reasons.
In response to their understanding of how disease spread, each incorporated town's health board and the Thomas County Board of Health were granted broad powers to declare quarantines, preventing trains from dropping off incoming passengers during yellow fever outbreaks. Thomas County voted to be a dry county on December 5th, 1898. This also contributed to the reduction in tourism. Although typical sales of all types of alcoholic beverages were outlawed, exceptions were made for private clubs and pharmacies.
So basically what I'm getting at is, for the people of Thomasville, if you wanted to still socially drink, there were ways to do it. But when you want to end the tourism business, outlawing just in general the sale of alcohol is one of the best ways to do it. The Thomasville, Tifton, and Gulf Railroad opened in July 1900, connecting Thomasville to Tifton by way of Moultrie. The Gulf part was never completed.
One of the stops for the new railroad was an agricultural settlement about halfway between Thomasville and Moultrie. Postmaster George Kennedy named it for Thomas Jefferson Coolidge, Jr., the primary funder of the railroad. Folklore informs us Kennedy believed Coolidge, a great-grandson of Thomas Jefferson from Boston, Massachusetts, and a venture capitalist, would fund the building of a sugar refinery in return of the honor.
Deep breath.
And one where now? Are you sure? I never said anything. Wicked awesome, bro.
I apologize to everyone the city of Boston, the city of Coolidge, regrets.
Refinery was never built, and it's not certain that Jeffrey Coolidge ever knew he had a town named for him. Coolidge did incorporate on December 10th, 1901.
So Jeff Coolidge would die a million deaths. He was a member of the Boston Brahmin community. Both sides. His father was the Secretary of Defense under McKinley. We are just a person who lived in a world of the highest elite level that you could get. If he knew I gave him a Southie accent, he would haunt me every day. But also, I don't know, and I mean this with compliments to both Thomas Jefferson Coolidge and the city of Coolidge. Has there ever been a greater gap between a place and the person that place is named for? When I went into this also, the other thing is, I was wondering, is there still descendants of Thomas Jefferson Coolidge? I missed it. In 2012, Thomas Jefferson Coolidge the fifth died. And he had stepchildren, but there was not a Thomas Jefferson Coolidge the sixth. I really wanted a letter and tried to talk him into writing a letter to the city of Coolidge, just sort of acknowledging that the Coolidge family is aware and all that, and I missed the boat on that, so.
Tourism wound down in the county seat, and emphasis was placed on public education. The Thomasville City School System began operation in 1901 in the Fletcherville School Building for white students and a wood frame building on Clay Street for black students.
So did Meg's. Even Patton. And Pavo. I just want to get a sense. This was a huge building. Look at the little kids on there and the proportion of the size, even though they're little kids, how big that building was. Gorgeous, too.
Despite growth and optimism elsewhere in the county, the resort era of Thomasville and Thomas County came to a dramatic, if not symbolic, end on April 12, 1906, when the Piney Woods Hotel burned in a massive fire. The cause was unknown.
In the county seat, the tourism industry was being replaced with a gradually encroaching growth of industry. On Broad Street and Jackson Street, established businesses grew as Thomasville became a shopping center. Neal Brothers Dry Goods, Cocroft Music Store, Feinberg Furniture, and Steinman's Department Store were amongst the fixtures of downtown. Around Thomas County, cotton remained the primary cash crop, but farmers were under the constant threat of the dreaded fall evil. But this period also saw dramatic growth in maple stores, the turpentine industry. It was extracted from pine trees and was relocated from the Carolinas. By the 1930s, naturally produced turpentine was being replaced by synthetic alternatives, but for more than a generation, it was a vital part of the Thomas County economy.
In the first interscholastic football game in Thomas County history, October 10th, 1914, the Thomasville High School Red Tornadoes beat the Ocklawaha High School Indians 55-0. Go easy, guys. But you'll notice one of the things they mention in there is that this was actually from 1895, that first football game. This was the first time football was being played in Thomasville since then, as that little mention down there about it, first game staged since the days of Professor Clark at the South Georgia College. And it has been, as we all well know, played since then, consecutively.
For the previous 15 years, the county was focused on internal improvements, but by 1917, the county, state, and country were pulled into the Great War of Europe. Throughout Thomas County, men registered for the draft. Some never returned. Some returned permanently impacted. At the end of World War I, thousands of young men returned from Europe. They were ready to once again open Thomasville and Thomas County to business and the world.
So this is that time period where Thomasville, Thomas County are starting to look a little bit like the Thomasville and Thomas County that we know. There's, of course, the Flowers Baking Company, Rotary, founded in 1921. And this was also a time where there was new technology coming around, like video cameras. Joe Mitchell, that's Bob Balfour in the hat right there. At the end of World War I, oh, no, forgot about this last roadshow slide. This is also when the roadshow popped up in 1922. So talented people from Thomasville and Thomas County continued to achieve the highest levels of success this time. There's Thomasville, Thomas County native, Samuel Guyton Geet McClendon was the Georgia Secretary of State from 1919 till he dropped dead of a heart attack in office in 1928. Then in the special election to replace him, Thomas County native and the commander of the Georgia American Legion, Louis Stone Moore, lost by like literally a percentage point. I cannot, Geet McClendon, as he was known by his friends, is one of the most underrated people in terms of impacting how Thomasville and Thomas County look today. You look at the infrastructure projects that were going on in Thomasville and Thomas County in 1919, and then look at 1920. He never forgot, even though he was up in Atlanta for the last 10 years of his life, he did not forget Thomasville and Thomas County and was regularly increasing. There was sending money down to build concrete bridges, to pave roads, and had as much to do with the physical hardscaping, if you want to call it that, of Thomasville and Thomas County as anyone. Thomas County resident, Reason Chestnut Bell, everyone called him RC, was a justice of the Georgia Supreme Court from 1932 to 49, was Chief Justice from 43 to 46. Hugh James McIntyre, born and raised in Thomas County, former mayor of Thomasville, was a justice on the Court of Appeals, which is the one right below the Georgia Supreme Court, from 1932 to 1952. And all the meanwhile, just the best known people in America continued to visit Thomasville even after the resort era. So here is, in the middle is Jack Dempsey, who was the championship boxer, sort of well known. On the far right, though, is another guy, Young Stribling. Young Stribling was, if you look it up, he'll say he was born in Macon. That's not really true. He was born in Bainbridge. But really, he was an Ocklawaha guy. His father and mother's family were from Ocklawaha, the Stribling farm. They still owned it and visited it all the time. And young Stribling, as he was working his way up the pro boxing ranks, always liked to come and train in Ocklawaha, which is exactly what Jack Dempsey was doing. Dempsey came down to train with Stribling. He died at a too young age in a motorcycle accident. Babe Ruth stayed at the Three Toms Inn. Looks like he shot his limit of quail.
County was again affected by World War II. Thousands of men enlisted and were drafted. In Thomas County, Finney General Hospital was built by the Army on Pine Tree Boulevard in 1943.
Unbelievably massive to build in an incredibly short period of time. It's a town unto itself.
On Ava Road, the Army Airport built an air base in 1943 too.
Same thing. And even as towards the end of the war, you still saw some of the best known people in America. William Bullhousey, or really Bill Housey, hunting at Greenwood, Duke and Duchess of Windsor. He pops up again later in a picture I like a lot better.
Enlisted men returned from service in World War II. New families began to have children. Others mourned their lost loved ones. The county was growing, and things could not quite remain the same. The increase in population was also good for business in the towns throughout Thomas County. Each had competitive teams at their schools, and during one memorable spring in 1948, Maize High School senior Herschel Eric Dick Brown pitched the Maize High School team to the state championship. He pitched 5 complete games in 4 days, including a no-hitter. 3 of those games, including the no-hitter, were in a 20-hour time frame. The article also mentions very casually that he drove the Maize school bus that year as a senior.
He drove the school bus. He pitched Megs to a state championship. Any baseball coach in America today that heard that, I think, would just pass out on the spot.
Thomas County, new schools were being built, and in most cases, after Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, equalization schools. The strains of operating dual school systems, as mandated by state law, became too challenging for the county towns. In 1958, the County Board of Education consolidated into Central High School for white students and Magnolia High School for black students.
Bethany Congregationalist Church, the church that was built with the Allen Normal School on Leicester Street in 1886, hired a new young minister in 1955. Andrew Young, the future mayor of Atlanta, United Nations ambassador, was one of the most significant civil rights and political leaders of the latter 20th century. He's visited many times since, and anyone who's had an opportunity to speak to Ambassador Young or know him or seen interviews knows he does really have a special place in his heart for Thomasville and Thomas County as the place where his career started.
This remained important. Each of the county schools maintained competitive high school level boys and girls basketball teams through consolidation. And in the Patton community, hundreds gathered at the Patton Speedway racetrack for stock car racing each weekend.
In March 1954, the Department of Civil Defense relocated headquarters for the Southeast Thomasville. Colonel Harry Brown oversaw the move. He was already known in Thomasville from his supervision of the transformation of Finney General Hospital into the Veterans Administration domiciliary. With that move, Thomas County became the headquarters for Region 3 of the Department of Civil Defense. It brought hundreds of jobs, talent, and made Thomasville and Thomas County an important strategic location.
As a 7-state regional headquarters for civil defense, some people became nervous. Thomas County might become a target in the event of a nuclear war. Fallout, shelter salesmen were prepared.
Mr. and Mrs. Thomasville must survive in case of disaster. It would be a shame if something happened to them.
Later, the Department of Civil Defense, which reorganized around 1970, built a massive underground continuation of government bunker at their headquarters on Pine Tree Boulevard. It was one of 10 built in the country and is still in use today and continues to be a popular topic of folklore and legend in Southwest Georgia.
And through the middle 20th century, continued to get visits from presidents, of course. Dwight Eisenhower, who visited six times over the 8 years of his presidency, because his Treasury Secretary, George Humphrey, owned Milestone Plantation. There they are at Milestone. This picture. For general, President Eisenhower, that is horrible gun handling. I will just assume that was loaded. Kids, never hold guns that way. You never pointed at anyone, let alone under your chin while riding in a wagon. Good grief. And the Duke of Windsor, who made his regular trips here to be offered patronage from the plantation owners, and here he is at the Times Enterprise, getting shown the machines which cranked out the lead letters, looking like he just wanted to be anywhere else in the universe than right there, right then. Of course, Jackie Kennedy famously made her visits in February of 1964 and again February of 1968. Hubert Humphrey made several visits too. So there was this guy named Ford Bell. Ford Bell was a state-level politician from Minnesota. He owned Marjorieland Plantation. When he sold it to Rankin Smith, they changed the name to Seminole. But he had, on a regular basis, and most of it really, really quiet except for Humphrey, but more presidential candidates coming to his place, like Walter Mondale, George McGovern, and all those guys from the upper Midwest and Plain States in the mid-20th century. And they would just quietly make the trips to Thomasville and go hunting at Marjorieland.
Most impactful events of this era was the building of new US 19 to the east of Thomasville in unincorporated Thomas County. It opened to traffic in 1961. Instead of leading cars through downtown Thomasville, businesses sprung up in the new Gateway District. The impact of the Cold War on Thomas County began to wind down around 1980, when the headquarters for the Southeast was moved back to Atlanta. It was further felt with the later closure of the National Guard Armory on Barnadoe Street. Although the determination for equal treatment under the law never ends, the closure of Douglas High School and Magnolia High School as all-black schools at the end of the 1969-1970 school year denoted the end of an era.
The 1970-1971 school year brought an end to the dual school systems. Magnolia High School became the integrated Magnolia Middle School for the county, and Douglas High School became the middle school for the city. The Thomasville History Center opened its doors at 725 North Dawson Street in 1972. By the end of this era, 2005, there were 10 cultural or historical institutions operating around the county.
1974, Coach Jim Hughes' Thomasville High School Bulldogs, led by future NFL running back William Andrews, Bruce McClure, a bunch of other great players that you could shoot in the eyes that I'm not mentioning right now, won the Georgia AAA State Championship, and then, much more importantly, were named. There was only one high school ranking service in the country, so it was always like you were the undisputed national champion at the time. And they selected Thomasville as the national champions. Coach Hughes got a nice letter from Gerald Ford, and it was a big deal then and remains a big deal today. In 1982, Earl Williams Jr. became the first black person elected to the Thomasville Board of Commissioners. That's what it was called at the time. A few years later, it did become City Council, but at the time it was still commissioners. In 1986, he became Thomasville's first black mayor. And in a much more complicated story, In 1980, oh, well, I'll let.
May 3rd, 1983, Bill Morris and Elijah Hill become the first two black people elected to the Thomas County Board of Commissioners.
Whenever you're over at the historic Thomas County Courthouse, there is a big plaque over there that explains this whole story about the lawsuit, Thomasville 6, and worth reading about how redistricting worked in Thomasville and Thomas County.
Central moved to its new building on the bypass and changed its name to Thomas County Central. The very next year, the Yellow Jackets beat the Peach County Trojans to win their first state championship, 14-13 on December 19th, 1992.
Okay, deep breath before this one. The Yellow Jackets beat the Thomasville High School Bulldogs to win their second state championship, 14-12 on December 18th, 1993. The game ended on a dispute. It didn't exactly end on a disputed play. But there was towards the end of the game that had a meaningful and real-world impact on the leadership of the Thomasville City school system. And yes, the end of that game remains a controversial topic 33 years later, as I have learned over the course of this year, the hardest way possible. It's too soon. The combination of an inter-county state championship game, Central alumnus Charlie Ward winning the Heisman Trophy at Florida State, multiple Thomasville High School and Thomas County Central players in the NFL led to national coverage on ESPN. They called Thomasville the football land of Oz in Southwest Georgia. The Yellow Jackets continued to win state championships under Coach Pilcher. They're back at it today, so good for them. With Atlanta hosting the 1996 Summer Olympics, we'll let you do that.
The 1996 Summer Olympics, the Olympic torch passed through Thomas County, with beloved retired Harper School principal Mary Grubbs passing off the flame on the steps of the Thomas County Courthouse on July 11, 1996.
Grubsky.
During this time, the individual grade schools were county towns closed, and a few found their own celebrations to honor their heritage and bring people into their communities. In Oklahoma, Old South Day has been celebrated each year since 1976. They created the Mini Marathon Festival, which also attracts hundreds of people each October as Boston continues to recreate itself in thoughtful ways. In each May, Payroll celebrates Peacock Day.
Years of stories to tell. Thomas County's got a rhythm. Can't you hear it swell? From Boston to Bali, Coolidge to Memphis, each town's got a tune that got spirit and legs. Oh, Playboy got a bloom. Oh, Coffee knows how to grow. Metcalf whispers secrets where the trains used to roll. Thomasville's heart is a rose red, white, and blue. It sings, oh, Thomas County, this song's for you. Raise a glass, tap your shoes, it's the Jubilee. 2 centuries strong, now sing it with me. Yellow bells got charm, Millville's got grace. Patton's old speedway keeps the timeless pace. Seasons always crossing, but its creek always flows. Elon's got a spark that only locals know. Summer Hill's got those curves, Spring Hill rolls wide. Ozell's road keeps on rocking.
All right, and to finish this up today, have Thomas Jefferson Johnson and Judge Love take us out on a poem called "A Flower in the Southland," written by William Ennis of Atlanta in 1904, published in the Atlanta Constitution about his love for Thomasville.
But you hear of the town in the bright southern pine, where the sweet magnolia breezes ever blow, where the honeysuckle blooms upon the vine, and you never see the chilling blight of the snow. The city that I speak of is where Thomasville. She is the queen of all the towns among the pines. Near her borders flow 100 rippling hills, where the southern sun and radiant silver shine. There the mockingbird is singing far and wide, and in pristine glory nature is displayed. There the whippoorwill is heard at eventide, and sunset skies in gold and purple are raised. On every zephyr that ripples o'er the hill, you can smell the scent of roses on its breath, and your heart will be enchanted with its thrill, and it woos you into slumber's sweetest breath.
All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Ephraim. That was awesome. Talk about bringing history to life, right? I about fell out of my chair the first time I saw one of those pictures start talking. And as a former curator, I just want to say, I have a real appreciation for how much time and thought and energy Ephraim put into that. I mean, that's a ton of work, and it was done in such a creative and engaging way. So I just want to give Ephraim another round of applause. As I mentioned earlier, this is just, yes, Teresa, do you have a question?
I've been to many programs in this room. It's the finest one I ever saw.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So as I mentioned earlier, this is one in a series of lectures that we're doing for our city bicentennial. And so the next one is going to be this time next month, April 7th. We're going to have Lori Curtis, the curator from Pebble Hill Plantation, come and present on the 200-year legacy. If you haven't been out to Pebble Hill, they have a new exhibit there, the same title. And actually, Lori is doing a tour this Thursday, March 5th, from noon to 1 p.m. If you go to their website, you can check that out and do a tour over there at Pebble Hill. And then they also have their fourth annual Polo Classic on Saturday, March 14th going on. So check that out. A couple things on our end. Also on March 14th, we have the first of 5 excursions that we're doing this year, and Mimi has spearheaded this, and we'll be taking a trip out to Quitman to see various historic sites and have a nice lunch out there. And so if you're interested, check out more on our website or grab one of these flyers in our gift shop on your way out, thomasvillehistory.org. We've got other trips planned in Metcalf, Coolidge and Pavo, McLaughlin, and Boston later this year. And one more thing, we have on March 20th, it's an exciting new fundraising event for the Lapham Patterson House. Some of you may be familiar with the alignment, the equinox, the spring equinox of the light that comes through those beautiful stained glass windows onto different architectural features in the house. And so we wanted to make sort of a fun evening out of that and help support the Lapham Patterson House and raise some funds and have fun while doing it. So we're going to have a dinner. This is Friday, March 20th, the day of the spring equinox. Come out and have some cocktails, some tarot card readers. We'll be upstairs. We'll have a special sangria, signature sangria, and a nice dinner. And then the presentation by me on the history of the house and the Lapham family's spiritualist beliefs that kind of influence the design, architectural design of the house. All right, I think that's it for I just want to say, if you're here and would like to go explore the grounds and the rest of the museum, please feel free to step stay as long as you'd like. Grab some cookies or some beverages on your way out, and be sure to check out the gift shop if you're so inclined. But
If anyone has any questions, we'll let them know. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't realize you took questions. So
Oh, yeah, sure.